It's a Monday morning, which means I am joined by Millie to talk all things navigating adulthood.
Join us, two girls in our 20s, as we muddle through life and try and figure out what being an adult really means.
You can find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts and YouTube. Please do give us a follow and check out our socials at No Longer Legally Detained.
Guten Morgen, everybody.
Happy Monday, happy morning, happy Millie. You happy?
Yeah, you're here. Of course I am.
Another notification.
Today,
We are talking about something that impacts so many of us, but still carries a lot of stigma. And that is...
opening up about our mental health.
Well done, Millie. You did... Millie, we just clarify.
You like the hesitation? That was... Yeah, no, I know.
And the best part is that Millie has planned these podcast episodes.
Yeah, I know, but I just didn't know if that was exactly...
No, that's it.
But
Yeah,
that
that's
was-
exactly what I wanted you to say. Whether you have struggled with it personally... Why did I put the mic so far away from myself?
No, you wanted me to say mental
No, I didn't.
health.
No, that I didn't want you to say mental health. That
Okay.
was incorrect. But I knew in my head.
Because that's what I couldn't decide whether you wanted me to say mental health or opening up about your mental health. Anyway, sorry.
Right.
Carry on.
It's a topic that is really important to open up about, but what does it really mean to open up? How do we talk about mental health without the fear, guilt, or shame? Before we dive in, we just want to remind you that this episode is for anyone who has ever felt alone in their mental health journey or has struggled to find the words to express how they're feeling. If this topic feels heavy, remember you're not alone. Also, it's important to remember to seek out extra support and know that it is okay to ask for help. There are resources and people and things out there to help you. We are not doctors or professionals in any capacity.
Although we'd like to be.
And if you think this episode may be too heavy for you, it is okay to skip.
So, opening up about your mental health. Should we start with... Hannah's gone...
I'm listening to
I
you.
know you are. You're just looking
In my
very
egg.
intently. It's hard.
Yeah. It's hard.
It's tricky.
It's not a one-off thing.
No, it's not a one-off thing.
When we were speaking about this yesterday, I was saying how I took it originally as the first time you open up about your mental health, or struggling with your mental health more than opening up about your mental health. Because obviously mental health, we all have mental health. But then also I've been thinking about the fact that actually it's obviously, again, it's so nuanced because everything in life is. But when you've been struggling or you've struggled and you've it's got a bit better for a bit and then you're struggling again, and how that's also tricky and it can be different. And recently, not recently as in but more recently, if I've been struggling, it's not even knowing the words of how to say to someone
Yeah.
I can't cope or whatever it is. And I was having this exact thought, I was gonna say conversation, but it was literally with myself about when, especially for people who've again, I'm jumped as always massively further forward, but it's almost like having an emoji, because what do you even say, help? And I was literally I was actually I'm actually writing this into a little show that I'm doing of asking for help, because it's the most when you think about it, what do you even say, especially if for someone who's struggled a lot and people help you and then you get a bit better and then it gets worse again, which is just life. And I was thinking it's almost you need an emoji or a stock phrase. I want to create maybe an Instagram post of no, but I do, because of
an Instagram post, not an Instagram post of help.
No. I'm
That's what I was thinking. I was
no, but as in but of phrases of I something I to be able to go to cop and go right, just as ideas of where to start. But also, this is jumping really far, but in the tips and tricks of if you've got someone who you are able to open up to and it's a healthy thing of almost even just having an emoji, so being oh, I will send you the unicorn emoji when I'm struggling, and that, and knowing what that means, even if it's just oh, I send you that, so then you don't have to word anything, and but that person knows that, oh, you just want to FaceTime, even if you're not having to deal with what it is, but do you know what I mean? Am I right?
I do know what you mean.
Yeah,
that's good.
I was really quite impressed with that, but we've not even started the episode and I'm already giving tips for something that people don't even know what we're talking about. Classic Hannah. But yeah, opening up about your mental health is...
I think the other thing about it not being a one-time thing is when you get into new environments, having to go through, and you don't have to go through your history of everything, but
we know where that's come from.
Yeah.
So should we give it a little bit of structure to this to, make the listeners have some kind of thing to hold on to?
Yeah.
Should we start with the first time opening up about mental health?
Yeah.
And as always, we can only speak from our personal experiences.
Yeah, we can.
And
so that's what we're going to do.
So challenges, we're going to think like difficulties with opening up, or how you felt before you opened up.
Do you know what? I think every time.
I'm looking back to mine, and I think
mine have been quite different depending on what it is.
Yeah, I think when
I was
very first-ish time, I suppose. Yeah, because did you have the thing where you like dropped hints / maybe even said something that wasn't like no one believed, not believed you, but like didn't quite realize.
Yeah,
because I had that, and then it was the time that I was first like actually believed / people were like, okay, maybe this is a bit of an issue.
Sorry, it's not funny.
It's not.
But
I was sat in a hospital bed, and then it was a bit like that awkward moment where it's like
when my mum took me to the opticians and she didn't believe my eyesight was as bad as it was, and
then you found out you're blind.
Everyone was like, "Oh, you need glasses." Oh, hello, we're about to get a visitor.
Hello. Hi.
Jill's here. We're recording, Jill.
Hello. Oh, poor Jill.
She was so excited to come in.
I know, she was lonely, and then we're just like, sorry,
we're
working.
actually recording, Jill. You don't want to be part of it, so.
No, right. But later. Open up about mental health.
Where were we? We were just somewhere really good.
Me on a hospital bed, but I think that's really good, is it?
No, but we were.
I wonder whether it has changed as time's gone on.
I think it's definitely changed.
Which is good and maybe not so good in different ways.
Yeah.
Like, and again, like I feel like I keep like banging on about my age in so many different contexts, and I'm not actually that old. But like, it is amazing how much progress has been made, even since I was a bit younger. I think like I'm 24 now, and like at the beginning of secondary school, although mental health was a thing, it was nowhere near as big of a thing. Like,
I think even looking at the difference between me and you being like 3 years apart.
Yeah, 3.5 years, because you're the same distance between me and my sibling.
Yeah.
So like,
and I think
that's different then.
It became a lot. Like it was a big thing when I was.
And to be fair, actually, I'm thinking about my sibling in school, and like they knew a lot of mentally ill people, like people who were struggling with their mental health in obviously different ways. And I suppose
I don't
just in those 3 years.
I don't want to be like, I don't want to sound like I'm an old person going, oh, mental health wasn't a problem in my days.
Because it was, but it just wasn't spoken about.
There was a lot of like people who really needed help, but there was also a lot of people who didn't
know. And I think that's with anything, and I think that's why it's become such a tricky thing, and it's so good that it's spoken about, because the stigma and all of that, and absolutely
the actual thing that's probably more that's actually damaging.
But obviously with anything, when more people start talking about it, then of course there are people who jump on the bandwagon, and that's part of life. And I think that comes with its own kind of difficulties in conversation, and that's not really, we don't have time for that today.
And I also don't think we have the position
to talk about
it and
that. And I think
that, and I think that's one of those things that I wouldn't even, I mean, we have just touched on it, but I wouldn't want to actually go into depth with, because it's such a tricky topic.
And it's so like, it is literally individually centered, and there's so many things that like you just end up like tying yourself in knots, like trying to talk about it.
Yeah.
But so we're kind of putting that to the side for for this opening about mental health podcast episode. But I think it, in terms of talking about mental health, I want to start with the definition, not the definition, like, but like the differences between mental health, mental well-being, and mental illness. And I think that it is really important. And that's not, again, I really want to reiterate that I find it tricky from someone who sat in my position, because it may appear like, oh, because I spent time in hospital, that somehow that makes me think that I was more of a sick person than someone who wasn't. And I actually do not believe in that, or that hierarchical of like illness. I really don't. But I also do think that it's important to know the difference in terms, and not because they either invalidate each other, but because it is important to, like, you know, as to know also, mainly just for yourself, like not in any kind of comparison. And like, so for like the difference between mental health, mental illness, and mental well-being, and then adding in this new conversation about mental fitness, which for a long time, when I first heard the term mental fitness, I was like, absolutely get gone. Like, I was like, you are a massive... But I am now so on board with mental fitness, and I think, which is amazing.
75 hard mental,
but version. In a like, I think it's really interesting. And so, like, from what, as again, not a doctor, but like everyone has mental health the same as we all have physical health. Mental illness is that step beyond. Like, we don't all have a mental illness, and even if you struggle with your mental health, or you have really like challenge, you don't necessarily struggle with a mental illness the same as we don't all struggle with a physical illness. And that is just a thing. And then you go on to like mental well-being, bit of like, or physical well-being, of kind of like, when I think of like physical well-being, for example, like for my physical well-being, I might decide that I want to drink 2 liters of water a day. Like, I think, is that a normal amount of water to drink? I think that's the normal. So like, I might decide that, and if I...
You can see Hannah has actually not made that resolution.
I haven't. So like, for I might say if I've only been drinking like 500ml, my physical well-being might not be the best. Actually, probably would be a lot worse than that. But anyway, hypothetically, forget the numbers. So like the same with like mental well-being, but like, I'm not like ill. I'm not even like really necessarily like struggling. I just need to drink some more water to make me feel better about my thing. So I think it's important. And then obviously, like, to have that differentiation when it comes to just knowing that. But again, not to say that just because you're not got a mental illness doesn't mean you shouldn't open up, and doesn't mean you're not struggling, doesn't mean it's not really hard. And I think that's like a really tricky kind of thing to navigate. And I guess we're kind of probably, I mean, it's hard, you know, the definitions, and obviously when it comes to like mental illness, again, not a psychiatrist, so not here to kind of focus per se on that kind of criteria, because actually when it comes to mental illness, even as someone who has had mental illness and has, you know, struggled with that, we're going to talk about mental health today. And that because we're not doctors. And so in terms of like feeling rubbish in life, and I think it can be really hard to know the difference between, because first of all, we don't all feel happy all the time. And it's a classic cliche phrase, but like, just because you feel sad does not mean you are mentally unwell. Still to say though, if you feel sad, you are very valid to go and talk to someone about feeling sad. I mean, you know, you might not need to like admit yourself into hospital because you feel sad one day. Like, but just because, even if there's not even a reason behind why you feel sad, you absolutely go and speak to someone you love, or who, like, there's no criteria. And hopefully, you know, and again, I also get that thing of like, we don't all have people who we are able to speak to, and that's really hard. And I can completely understand and relate to having that at points. But there are different ways of finding people you can kind of And I've got some good resources, actually, Emily, I can say. Remind me of my resources at the end of here.
I will.
But in terms of opening up about mental health, one of the things that I have found tricky is knowing how to word it.
Yes.
Being worried that it's not valid enough, which again isn't true, but it is a thing that people feel.
The thing that I think, and why I kind of want to talk about this, is because I find once you've spoken about it, it gets rid of the shame around it. And I think once you've done it once, and that's the thing, as much as once you've done it once, it doesn't get it easier to do it again. Well, it does. I think it does get a bit easier to do it again, potentially.
I'm
not saying it gets easy,
and it's very different, and we may have different opinions, and that's okay. You can still, you know what, you can disagree with your friend and still be friends. I suppose let's talk about a time when we opened up about our mental health and it was positive. Like, what happened?
Do you know what I'll say?
Yeah.
When not even in terms of the responses being positive or negative, I found it so much easier to open up when I was feeling sad and when I was what one might call depressed than when I was opening up about anything else. And I don't know why. Like, I feel like, actually, I think it's because by the time that I was opening up about it and was depressed, it was much more normalised.
Yeah, okay. And also, I suppose, I don't know, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but like, when you feel that, like, that low, like that rubbish, you feel almost like you've not got anything to lose.
Yeah.
Because it's already rubbish, so what?
Exactly.
Like,
and I think it's just...
Not that you have to wait to that point.
No, please don't. And
I suppose that, this...
And I don't even think I did wait until to that point, but I think I just... Do you know what I think it... do you know what I think it was? I think it's because like, emotion-wise, you kind of know what's normal and what's not.
Yeah. It's emotional intelligence, I guess.
Yeah.
But this is such a massive, like, topic. I'm thinking, like, now, like, I'm trying to, like, this is why I write a script when I do mine, because I'm ramble on. But I think, like, this conversation is different depending on who is listening, like, who is angle. And I think we're gonna go on the angle of, like, other people who are wanting to reach out for like help, not from being the receiving end of that. And I think your head, for me, I think back to the times, and your head is telling you all of these things, but it's your brain that isn't thriving, and you're at the moment, and your brain is telling you that you maybe don't want to say something, and we maybe can't trust our brain in that moment. I think it's a massive step, and when you do it, you've been really brave. Like, it really, like, not in a cringy or like patronizing way. It is such a massive thing. And the same, I suppose this is, like, not a blame thing, like, just by opening up isn't going to change it there and then. And the person you tell, and I think this is something that I definitely, when I was younger, looking back now, realised, like, not that I thought, but I suppose, you open up and you tell someone and you think that then they're going to be able to do something, and they probably can't. And actually, that's a whole psychology thing of, like, mental health. And I think what prevented me for a long time, forgetting the other reasons I didn't open up, was because I didn't feel like it made a difference, because I had the wrong expectations of what that involved. And that's really hard. And it's...
Do you know what? And I think that's where we are still at quite different stages.
Yeah.
Because I think you're very good with the whole opening up and talking to people about having the right expectations, whereas I think I still sometimes have that. I think it's so normal to have that expectation of, like, I'm going to talk to someone and then I'm just magically going to be better. And how many times have I called you, Hannah, going, like, this is just actually ridiculous. Like, can somebody just fix me?
And that I could, it's very, so normal.
Yeah.
And I have got to this position by, sadly, a lot of really, really horrendous.
Yeah.
And obviously, there hopefully is a better way for people to get to that point of like realizing without having to like experience really quite a lot of trauma and heartache. But no, I think it is something that takes time, and is very normal to expect it and to want it, and it isn't like you're being naive or any of those things. When you feel really rubbish, like I'm using the word rubbish not to trivialize, but obviously I don't want to put any specific words out there into the space. It is completely normal to want that to stop and to want to, by telling someone, because that's what everyone tells you to do, especially, you know, as younger people, if we tell an adult we expect them to do something about it.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling rubbish, it would be bonkers for you to go, I feel really rubbish and I want to tell someone and it's not going to get any better. Or I don't want it to get any better. Of course you want it to stop. And it's very normal reaction. And it's not to say that it doesn't stop and it doesn't get better. And if on the
it's just not a quick fix.
And I suppose on this maybe to link back to the podcast that I did at the beginning of this year, on one of my New Year, New Social Construct, on the subject of suicide, specifically. I won't go further than that. There is a trigger warning on that episode, but kind of talking about that, sitting in those feelings, and kind of like, if you want to go and hear more about my thoughts on that, that would be a good episode to go and listen to.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. And I think it's interesting, and I suppose because we are at those different stages, which I think is really hopefully for you reassuring that you can get to the point.
I don't know. I look at Hannah and I think, God, my future's bleak.
She's sat in an egg.
I'm joking.
She's lost her shorts this morning.
I think it's
like just in terms of that mental health thing, because I mean, for as long as I can remember, this is deep, right? We're getting very deep. For as long as I can remember, I have not ever been happy. And obviously that's for like a lot of different reasons. And I've really struggled, and I felt like the world is just this horrendous and horrible place. And, you know, also being autistic, literal thinking, like being told, you know, having not reached out for help, and then things happening and people going, why didn't you reach out for help? And then sometimes reaching out for help and then not getting the response that I thought I would get. And it can leave you so confused. I think that's probably my biggest thing of like opening up is that it's so confusing. You get so many mixed messages.
And also, because the thing I've got written down is, even if the first time it does not go well, don't give up.
Definitely don't give up, because there are
people who are going to be absolute morons.
Yeah,
I mean,
idiots.
Trust me, we've both had
everybody
experiences.
Most people, but you find that one person, and it might not be the same person forever. And that's something again that I've learned, is that I've opened up to people, and in that moment, I've opened about things I've never spoken about before, and I don't speak to them anymore, but they served me in that moment.
Yeah.
There are so many things that I would, you know, the classic cliche phrase, which I hate, of going back to my younger self about, and although I don't wish what happened to me on anyone or myself, through having such probably an extreme situation, it has given me an insight into the kind of the whole process. And although it's shown me the darker nature of like opening up, actually it also has shown me that I don't even know how to word it. The silence. It's shown me that
there is a way through.
There is a way through. And like, I know that if someone had spoken to me, I think back to all of the, you know, when nobody knew how much I was struggling, and being absolutely determined that there was no way that I was going to get any better. And I know that if you're listening to this as someone who's like absolutely not. No one else knows how I feel. No one knows what I'm talking about. Like, yes, it works for other people, but not for me. I was that person. And I was told by healthcare professionals that I wouldn't get any better. I was told that this was my life. I was a revolving door patient. I was told my eating disorder, more recently, that my eating disorder, I'll never get better from that, but that's a whole other conversation for another day. Gross. And as someone who really did believe, and I would like feel a bit better, and then it would get worse again, and then I'd reach out, and then people would be like, even in the moment, oh, what can we do? We want to help. And that's, I suppose, another maybe angle of it to go on to in a minute, of like, when people ask you what help do you want when you ask for help, it really does get better. And what that better looks like isn't necessarily what you think it's going to look like, but it is that thing of, you can live around the pain. And when you live around the pain, eventually that pain lessens in frequency. Does it necessarily lessen in strength when it comes? Well, depends. There are still moments of like those all-consuming, overwhelming, like negative waves. I still have them now, but the difference is that I know, even if in the moment I might say that I don't know, that if I just, and I say just in massive quotation marks, hold on, when I wake up in the morning, it will be better. And in that, reaching out and telling someone that I'm struggling, with the expectation that they aren't necessarily going to be able to do anything, but just sitting in those feelings with somebody else is better than sitting alone.
Yeah. And I also think, in terms of having a bad response,
it's really hard. And you know what? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is shit. It is shit when the effort, we get it. The effort when it takes, to the bravery to open up, and some absolute idiot responds in the most just moronic way possible. And you just think, quite frankly, this person's clearly got
this is what's wrong with humanity.
And we've both been there, and we've both had responses to that, which, it's horrible. And you know what? There is no justification of it. There is no of any of those things. And like, there is no making that better. All I have to say is, you are worth more than their stupid response.
Yeah.
You are valid. Your problems, your thoughts, your feelings are completely valid because they are yours and you feel them. They might not be true because...
And also understanding, and when I say this, I'm saying it from somebody who's experienced it, and also can understand that everybody's human and everybody has their own emotional human response to things, and everyone makes mistakes, but also knowing that isn't good enough. Like,
no,
you can understand, like, taking the empathy with you and saying, like, do you know what, they're human and they've said that thing and they've misjudged it completely, and I can understand that, but also say,
that's not okay.
I deserved more than...
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And response. Like, on the thing of like, when I said before, like, that the true, like, not being true, like, I mean that in sense, like, if you're feeling really low about yourself and you feel like you don't deserve to be alive.
Yeah.
That is, you do deserve to be alive. So it's not true that you think that, but it is true that you feel that in terms of and it's completely valid. And if someone then responds to that in a bad way, and I just wanted to clarify my true point, because I felt like I just left it on, that's not true. Because I've got a few different resources about when you open up, how if someone opens up to you about ways that, because I think there is, and actually Beverly would, Beverly would be a good one to get on for this, because she would admit, when I say first, it was a while into the whole thing, she wanted to make it better. And like, obviously, when we look at this, there are some people are just dicks, and that's just, and obviously there are reasons behind there being a dick, but talking about people who do really care and say the wrong thing, which again is still, you don't deserve that, but like, on that subject of that thing, Beverly would always, because she wanted to make it better, because her child is there and is in so much pain.
I think parents are in such a... I think about this quite a lot when I think about having a child of my own. That's not happening anytime soon. This isn't the pregnancy announcement, guys, don't worry. But I think parenting must be so hard when it comes to mental health.
So hard. I'd like to give a tip from Beverly.
You'd want to, like, you desperately want to help them.
Hence why we're going to get Beverly on this subject.
Yeah.
She went and, you know, she went through this whole thing of, like, to begin with, I imagine I went through the anger of, like, your child is,
yeah,
which again, completely valid. She went through the whole wanting to make it better, and the amount of times we fought over this whole thing. And I think it will be a really interesting episode to kind of look into that thing of, and what she eventually, and again, does she get it right at the time? No. Luckily, I'm such a free bean now. But that thing of, she wanted to make it better, so she was looking for solutions, but sometimes there isn't a solution.
No.
And that
comes if there was a solution, God, we'd all be all over
exactly.
it.
Exactly. I'd be well rich. I'd be on an island somewhere now. And actually, that's the whole life, the life thing of life's a journey, not a destination, which is my favourite phrase. It's not even my favourite phrase. I don't even like that phrase, but I say it all the time. But back on to opening up about your mental health, because we feel like we've gone on a complete tangent. It's hard. First of all, it's hard. It's valid.
Talk about a niche thing.
Okay. I was thinking the whole of this thing's quite niche, but yeah. Hit me with your rhythm stick.
I'm going to talk about my situation.
Okay, I'll have a little rest.
That was niche. Because I don't think this was going to happen to everyone. Well, no, actually, I think the concept of it probably has. Being outed about your mental health.
Oh, yes.
And my situation...
This is a very interesting... this is interesting. Go.
My situation...
I feel like we're rambling. I'm rambling. We need to just get on with it.
My situation was that everybody kind of knew about it, and I didn't know that everybody knew about it. I don't even know. No.
Yeah, no. I think that is like that. That is almost
and it came out at a party. Now,
I think it's an important topic.
I think what we all need to learn from this, because what I'm about to follow this up with is a positive. At the time and still now, that was shit. And if that happened to you, which I don't know how much that's happening to people, to be completely honest.
I think what you're like, just to jump in with like that thing of like, I obviously know what you're about to say.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's good that it came out, but they didn't need to do it. It didn't need to come out in that way. There are ways of it coming out, and it's important. Absolutely, you know, because part of being have struggling, you might for loads of reasons not wanting or not being able to, but there are ways and means of doing it, and some ways are just not okay.
At a party.
Not at a party. It's also the reason behind why you're saying it. When it comes from a place of care, it's also a private thing. It's not a butt of a joke. It's not an entertainment factor, obviously. I mean, which sounds really obvious.
Yeah, you're thinking, if you're listening to this, you're probably thinking, yeah, well done. It's not like something to be... But the situation in which, for me, specifically my eating disorder, came out within my group of friends.
And again, just preface, not there's no blame in this episode.
There's no blame.
Like...
No, but
I think
what I would say is...
God.
It's not... The way that it came out was horrendous. But what I will say, and in no way does this mean that I'm saying that it was okay.
It's not okay.
It wasn't, and it actually...
And we know and
a year on...
2 years on.
2 years on. A year and a bit.
Yeah.
A year and a bit on, I can say I've had to work through a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have had to work through.
In that way, no, absolutely not.
Because of it. But I also think it forced me, and you shouldn't have to be forced, but sometimes, you know, it's the best way to do it, is it forced me to take on the fact that there was a lot of shame. Like, at the point that it came out, I was 2 years into recovery and thought I was thriving. And then that happened, and I realised, actually, instead of being able to take that on the chin and be like, yeah, so people know, and like, it's not the way that I'd like for it to have come out, I've realised how much shame I was still feeling around it, and how like actually the secrecy of it and the fact that I wasn't talking to anybody about it was actually feeding into it, and it was feeding into this idea that I had a reason to be ashamed, kind of thing. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think it does, and I think that's, again, speaks to a lot of this systemic thing of like mental health and mental illness, that mental health is more less stigmatized, but mental illness isn't. Yeah. And also that thing of like it is only destigmatized and accepted in ways that are palatable to the majority.
Yeah.
And again, that is wrong, because absolutely people who, you know, the things that happened people do when in the height of, you know, real, you know, severe and enduring mental illness and or any kind of mental health. First of all, it doesn't just, being mentally ill does not justify your actions of hurting anybody else.
No.
And doesn't mean, and the things that, but, and in things that you like might do that aren't very pleasant and are, you know, so really gross, but they are the reality. And while we still have the stigma around those, we have not destigmatized mental illness. We have made it palatable. We have and so it's still the same issues underlie the problem. We've actually not really made any progress. And I think that's the big thing that I would say, is that we haven't actually destigmatized true mental illness. And I think anyone who's, a lot of the groups, I'm part of one of the groups, I'm part of one of the kind of movements where it's focusing on kind of, we're still focusing on the glamorization and like allowing, we haven't obviously gone far enough in terms of the destigmatization of, and I think that does impact that opening up of struggles. And I think when you're on with your situation, like, first of all, it's not justified what happened. There's no justification. There's no acceptance of.
No, you little shits.
There's also that thing of absolutely looking at it from an outsider perspective, like, you know, in an academic lens, you can see that there was a complete lack of understanding of mental health, the lack of understanding of eating disorders. There was, you know, young people, all of those things, like, who hadn't. And again, that doesn't justify. That explains the behaviour. It doesn't justify why that behaviour happened. And I think, again, it's that also it speaks to the fact that there is so much work that needs to be done for young people. Also, I can, you know,
and I'd also say, and this is like from the perspective of someone who's been opened up to.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that actually, just because someone's opened up to you, you actually aren't entitled to any more information than they are willing and have given you.
No. And there's the thing of like safety, and I will preface that of, you know, especially as someone who works in a capacity of, for actually any capacity, and obviously like actually as a friend, you know, if your friend tells you something and they are at risk and they tell you not to tell anybody, you tell someone, an appropriate person, not like, you obviously, that thing of when you're given that information, you're in, it's a very privileged position, and you have no right to tell anybody else that information. However, the preface of the safety is that thing. And I would, you know, is it the Taylor Swift song where like, I'd rather you hate me but you're alive? Is that?
Yes, I do.
No, there's a song that's like trending on TikTok at the moment, and absolutely 100%. And I think maybe that, and that is something that I do, and I've been there, like, in terms of you tell somebody and you tell them not to tell anybody else, and that's a really hard position to put someone else in. And I have been there, I've done that, and looking back, like, it is an unfair position to put someone else in. I completely understand why people do it. I know, like, again, mental illness makes you do things that are not glamorous, that are not your trait. And I think that's another important thing of opening up when it comes to opening up on like the other side of absolutely opening up, finding someone you feel safe to talk to, all of those things. But also on the other flip side of the coin is remembering that opening up is important and being truthful and honest is so important, but also remembering that the person you are speaking to, forgetting professionals for a moment, they are also a human, obviously not the professional, aren't a human being, but they are also a person.
Yeah.
And there can be tendencies in when we're feeling really poorly to, as a cry for help, say and do things that are very negative for that other person.
Yeah.
And I think that is another important message, and that boundaries. And if you are someone who, and this is again a very tricky conversation, but as someone who, you know, has had friends who we did have to, we kind of cut ties during our illness because we were not helping each other. It was really unhealthy. And thinking about who you are opening up to and who you are talking to, and not in a blame way, but, you know, it's a really hard subject, and it's a really hard topic, and it's a really delicate balance. And I think that's where we slightly differ, in that opening up after the initial time.
Yeah.
I think there is such a nuance, and especially for someone when it comes to that kind of repeated struggling aspect, where it can, you know, can get to the point of like codependency, and also like it being an unhealthy thing. And I think that it's a really, again, and I'm not going to speak about that now because it's very nuanced. I don't necessarily agree with all of the narratives around that when it comes to inpatient specifically. But my biggest thing when it comes to opening about mental health is don't wait.
No.
Don't wait. Don't.
And I saw something that was, if you think you're not ill enough,
you're definitely got something going on.
Yeah, something's going on there.
Choose who you want to speak to carefully. Don't, as easy said, don't let a bad experience stop you from reaching out again. Look, and again, like, I don't Google, but in terms of like alternative support and charities, like as a thing, obviously, you know, NHS, like definitely go to a doctor, all of those bits. And but if whether for whatever reason, there's also a lot of charities that offer different approaches and different options. Actually, I will say now some things. There is, as I think it's 18 plus, but it's something called Frazzled, the Frazzled Cafes, and they are with Ruby Wax. She's an author, and basically, I think that's what they're called. I will just check, and I'll put it in the link in the bio, in the caption. But they're basically a place for people to go to just literally literally just like, and no solutions, no, because again, that thing of like what I have learned in my many years of struggling is what I need from the person I'm telling now. And again, I think when opening up for the first time, I think we kind of missed the whole opening up for the first time conversation, because I can't remember. Actually, that didn't happen for me. So I'm kind of many years on down the line of like when you're just like struggling again kind of thing. But sometimes sometimes I want a solution. Sometimes I don't want a solution. And it's having those options. And that's something that if people come to me like saying that I'll go, what is it that you want from me? Do you want me to just sit in the shit with you as long as you're safe? And it's like, do you want me to offer you advice / solution? Do you want me to just listen to what you've got to say? Do you want me to like within reason agree that how rubbish it is? Do you want me to offer you positivity? And I think those things come.
The thing is especially if there's a solution, you probably know deep down what the solution is. So whether it's that you need somebody to reinforce that,
or you might not, and there is that very valid thing. You might not see something that's really obvious to an outsider perspective because you can't see the wood for the trees. But also equally, you may know the solution, you may know what you're going to do about it, but you just want to just sit and just go, this all rubbish, and that is perfectly valid. Like, there are resources out there. Millie, I'm trying to focus.
Sorry, I found the nerve.
I know, but Millie, there are resources out there.
Yeah,
there are different people and ways of reaching out. A problem shared is a problem halved.
Don't share it at a party.
Don't share it at a party. Don't out. But that's a whole different thing. Don't out other people's mental health in group settings for public humiliation. Do, however, if you think someone is struggling, there are both Beat and Mind, and I think Young Minds have things that you can look at of what to do if you think someone else is struggling.
Yeah.
And look at those and read those and then decide how that, because absolutely, but it doesn't involve ever making it a meme at a party, and that is what we have to just preface very, very briefly. So I think,
and I can laugh about it now, but
no, it's horrible.
Trust me,
the computer's died.
The hell is that?
It's like you talked for too long. So I think let's go. Final parting tips. I'll go 3. You go 3. Tip number 1. From you or me. You got one?
You went to say it, and then I just said tip number 1 as if I had one. So then you go.
Tip number 1. Do it. Think about what you're doing. Do it, and think about how doing it will work for you, whether that be sending a message, writing a script, writing a letter. It might not be articulating it. Most of the times that I have written it down, because then I can articulate my thoughts and think about what I'm saying, and then I'm less likely to be misunderstood.
Tip 2, and this is kind of particularly when you're talking to professionals, but also friends, be honest.
Yeah.
Let's not be... You don't need to sugarcoat things.
The only person you're lying to ultimately is yourself. And I know that having been there, like that thing, and yes, your disorder or your thing wants you to get away with it, but ultimately the only person that you're hurting is yourself. Because unless you deal with the whole picture, it's not you've got holes in your whatever. I don't know. I don't know. And tip 2 from me. That was
tip 2 from you.
Tip 2 from me is expectations of what it's going to look like, and that's not in a really pessimistic, negative way. But also the thing of like working out what it is you need. And that's really hard because, I think that does come later on down the line. And I'm not sure how you can do it earlier on. I don't know how. I don't think I would have had no idea. And
it's really kind of only jumping in at the deep end.
Yeah. For me, it's only come like having done knowing so much about myself, but like thinking about what it is. And what I tend to do now is when I'm feeling really overwhelmed is just to myself, I write down everything of like what it is I'm feeling and what the ideal solution would be. And like for a long time, I wouldn't be able to do that because I wouldn't want to ask for that, because I feel like either they might say no, or I'm a burden, or that isn't physically possible. But if it's just to you, don't like and then you can then work out, well, actually, from what I've written and what the ideal of what I really want is, what can I ask? Who can I ask? What's actually feasible? And you can work out different steps of different ways of asking. And I think it is really, as you say, like that honesty to them, but also the biggest thing, honesty to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is actually I not even need a tip 3, because that is the honesty to yourself, real, true honesty, no judgment of yourself in terms of like, be honest with the ugly, 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 naked truth.
Yeah.
And that is the reason
that's the only way, and that's
the only reason I'm sat here today.
One of the things that I think I learned from having a negative experience with it was that actually I'd done a lot of the surface work and the basic work, but I hadn't actually let myself accept.
And in my case, I thought I'd got there, and I hadn't for a very long time. It took it takes a lot. And it's such a tricky, and so many emotions, but I can honestly tell you, the only reason I'm sat here today is because I was went really into and I did it without the shame and without that being an excuse to further my disorder.
Yeah.
Being able to do it in a factual, this is what it is, and that's really hard, but my God, is it worth it?
Yeah, I think that's where we should
So
end today.
Thank you for listening. Reach out. You are worth it.
Because you're worth it.
There is a life on the other side. You can grow around the pain, and one day you could be sat in an egg recording a podcast. Live, laugh, love.
Live, laugh, love. Reach out, guys.
Bye.
Bye.